We had to deal with the issue of voter suppression in the state of Georgia. And now you guys know I try to be fair. I try to play it right down the middle. We've had Governor Kemp on the show. We've had Secretary of State Raffensperger on the show before the moving of the last primary because of COVID to talk about what was going to happen in this primary election. And they assured us that things would go smoothly. They said that they were investing $104 million into modernizing the Georgia voting system that had not been updated since the year 2000 after Bush v. Gore. We would have all new machines. We'd have brand new training. Things would run smoothly. It didn't happen. We saw in the middle of a worldwide global pandemic that has killed 115,000 Americans, folks standing outside for up to 6 hours in order to vote. People who requested absentee ballots never received them, including me. People who were on the ballot as candidates. Maya Dillard Smith, a candidate for Senate, a black woman who was running in that same race with John Ossoff. The morning of the election, she checked her voter page and it said she was not registered to vote. Rainbow Push board member C.K. Hoffler, president-elect of the National Bar Association, was in line for 5 hours at her voting precinct in Brookhaven, trying to vote. We started getting calls at 6:50 in the morning before the polls even opened from around the state reporting irregularities, problems with machines, the inability to vote, lack of poll workers, moving of polling locations at the last minute without telling anybody. And so there's only one of two reasons that this could happen. It was either sheer, unprecedented, criminal levels of incompetence and stupidity at the highest levels, or alternatively, an intentional plan to suppress the votes of African Americans in order to skew the outcomes of these primaries to help the GOP in the fall. Why do I say that? Look at the demographics, folks. I had a law professor, Gottfried, in law school, who would always say, if it won't right, then it is wrong. If it won't right, then it's wrong. So if you look at a state like Georgia, Georgia, as of the last census, is 32.4%, almost 33% African American. It is 10% Latino, 5% Asian, 52% women, one of the largest LGBTQIAPK, NC, NF, MB, GF, TA communities in the entire country is located in Atlanta and throughout the state. So if that is the case, how in the hell is it that we have not elected a Democrat statewide since 2008 when Thurbert Baker won for Secretary of State? 12 years without a Democrat or a minority winning a statewide office in a state that is 49% minority, 52% women. How does that make sense unless you have one party that is stacking the deck against the other? We have constitutional majorities for Republicans in the House of Representatives. In the Senate, they control the statewide elected offices, including the governor, secretary of state, and every other statewide office. They have a stranglehold on the judiciary in the state, despite not having the demographic numbers to justify it. So they're not winning on the ideas. They're not winning on the field of play. They're winning with the refs. And what Reverend Jackson has always told us, Reverend Jackson will be on at 3:30 to give us a couple words of wisdom. But what Reverend Jackson's always said is that voter suppression is not about, Bull Connor sitting at the door with dogs and hoses not letting people vote. It's about skimming. It's about skimming off 5 votes for every 100 votes, 10 votes for every 100 votes here and there. So how do you skim? You purge the voter rolls, and then you wait for people to reapply, and they might reapply, they might not, or they'll show up on election day not knowing they've been purged and get a provisional ballot, which we'll find in the Chattahoochee in a couple weeks. You skim votes by changing precincts at the last minute and knowing that many people, many poor people who have turned out that morning to vote, well, now they have to find childcare. They are frontline essential workers who are not off from work or not able to work from home. So they can't stay in line 5 or 6 hours. So maybe for every 100 people in line in that precinct, 5 to 10 go home. And if that happens consistently around the state, you have now done a 10% swing in the eventual electoral totals. So this is about skimming those votes off in order to change that demographic reality to make it easier for one party to win versus the other. That is how you get a constitutional majority without having the demographics to back it up. We've seen this happening in Georgia for the past 20 years. I remember when I was in college, back then it was voter ID. Oh my God, we have to make sure everybody has a voter ID in order to vote. And guess what? The voter ID costs $10 to get from the state. And if you're poor, that equivocates to a poll tax. Got that struck down in court. Next, we had redistricting in 2010, where they were able to jangle around and gerrymander these districts to the point that they are completely non-representative of the actual composition of the state. Pack all the black folks into one district that couldn't make 3 districts, so now you have 3 Republican districts and 1 Democratic district, effectively giving a 3-to-1 majority despite having the exact same number of people voting. That's how you jangle things around. That's how you suppress the vote. These are the games that people are playing around us. So what has to happen? There have never been any penalties for voter suppression. We accused Kemp of voter suppression, and he got a promoted from Secretary of State up to governor. So we have to make there be repercussions, and that's what the Rainbow Push Coalition, along with a coalition of other civil rights organizations, is demanding the immediate termination, firing of state's election chief Chris Harvey, and the resignation or recall of the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Because understand, only with consequences will people realize that you cannot continue to play around with our votes. If you look at the statute, in order to recall an official in Georgia, you only need 15%. You need signatures of 15% of the people who voted in the last incumbent election. In this case, that would be 600,000 signatures that are needed. We can get that in Georgia.